Okay. Dandavat pranams. So I have a list of questions here, which one of our sweet devotees has sent. First question here is about the eclipse, about eclipses. What is it in our service life? Will this bring goodness or some inauspiciousness? This is an interesting question, because in our modern culture, we see an eclipse as something that people get excited about. People will drive out to watch an eclipse. But actually, interestingly, within the Vedic culture, an eclipse is something that is seen as inauspicious. There's some, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentions it in one place, that an eclipse, it's actually I'm not able to speak on the exact science of all these things, but it's something, what Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned is that it's a situation where the planets are aligned in such a way that it's actually a dangerous time, that there's some risk that there could be some collision of the planets and devastation. So it's actually considered to be an inauspicious time. There's some risk that this is like the end of the world, something like that. So traditionally, an eclipse is a time when persons within the Vedic culture, they'll congregate at a holy river and engage in the chanting of the holy name. So we see in some of the leelas, some of the pastimes that we've heard, there are examples of this. For example, at the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance, because there's this fear that there's this eclipse coming, this could be the end of the world, and Mahaprabhu, it's interesting that he chose to appear at that time, because what it meant is that everyone was within Navadvip, everyone was congregating at the holy river Ganges, and everyone was engaging in chanting the holy names of the Lord. And there's a particular section of followers of the Vedas known as Smartas, and they're very fixed on following different traditions, different practices, in kind of like a ritualistic external way. So like, for example, when Mahaprabhu, there's that occasion when he's chanting Gopi, 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 and one of these Smarta Brahmins, a student, he criticizes Mahaprabhu, saying, "Why are you chanting Gopi? There's no benefit. We do not know of any benefit mentioned in the scripture for chanting Gopi. There's some benefit for chanting Krishna, for chanting Hari, chanting Govinda, but chanting Gopi, what benefit? What reason would you chant that for?" And Mahaprabhu, of course, he's in this particular ecstatic mood, and he becomes very upset. So like the idea of chanting the names of the Lord out of a mood of devotion, out of a mood of service, out of a mood of dedication, this is like totally foreign. Like the only conception of chanting is that it's for some personal gain of some kind. So it's very significant that Mahaprabhu chose to appear at the time of an eclipse, because that would be a time when it's considered beneficial to chant the names of God. So Mahaprabhu appeared like at a time that's generally considered inauspicious, but from a devotional perspective, it is auspicious because everyone was chanting the holy names. So at the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance, and we've here in Italy at Villa Govinda, we've actually just come to this section in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so we'll be hearing this in the following days. So at the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance, there's this wonderful vibration of everybody chanting the names of the Lord. And there's also, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this beautiful angle that this like particular devotional vision Kaviraj Goswami expresses, that when the golden moon of Mahaprabhu was present, then what need was there for the ordinary moon? Gaura Chandra, the beautiful golden moon of Mahaprabhu, when he was present, then what would be the need for the ordinary moon? And so in shyness, the moon hid herself behind Rahu. So there's this very sweet vision. Then also, the other occasion that comes to mind, an example of this, congregation at a holy place during an eclipse, is the meeting between Krishna and the Braja Gopis. they've had about 100 years of separation, over 100 years of separation, and many persons are coming from different regions and congregating in the area of Kurukshetra, which is considered to be a holy place. And so this eclipse, the situation of this eclipse, actually facilitates this incredible meeting between Krishna and the Braja Gopis. So we can say, like, about the eclipse, like, generally speaking, it's considered something inauspicious. But for persons who are engaged in the exclusive practice of Krishna consciousness, who are connecting with the current of the absolute within this world, it's not something that we give so much attention to. No, we are like connecting with the fundamental flow of things, and all of these, temporary phenomenal manifestations within this world, incidents, we're not giving so much attention to. We're just going on with our cultivation of service, chanting Harinam, service to Guru Vaishnava. We're connecting with that fundamental original current, and in that we are, we don't need to pay so much attention to all of these environmental and societal considerations. So I hope that answers your question. And then the next question here is about Ekadasi. What is the proper understanding of Ekadasi as taught to us by our gurus, by our Sri Guru Varga? This is a many-layered issue, Ekadasi. There's different levels of understanding of Ekadasi. There's that one history told of, I don't remember the details, it's mentioned somewhere in the Puranas, I think, that there was some incident where Papa Purush, the incarnation of of sin, needed somewhere to take shelter, and so he was given the facility that on the day of Ekadasi he can take shelter in grains. So it's considered that on that day, the 11th day, Ekadasi literally means 11th day, in the cycle of the moon. So that means it happens about twice a month, once in the waning cycle of the moon, and once in the waxing cycle of the moon. So approximately every fortnight, every 2 weeks. So it's considered that on that day of Ekadasi, there's more concentrated sin within grains. So therefore it is, for our own, to maintain some level of purity within ourselves, we will avoid that. That's one level of understanding. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is also told that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once gave an explanation, like from an astrological or astronomical point of view, that the moon, that this is in consideration of the fact that at that time the moon is beginning to exert more influence within the environment. So as it's seen within the oceans, the tides, the moon is influencing water. The moon has some influence over water, and so when, not just water, but within the environment as a whole. And so you see how the moon, the phases of the moon, during different phases, the moon has more influence, and it can affect the movement of the ocean. So our bodies are actually 80% water, right? Something like that. So we're largely made of water. So the moon also has some influence on us. And so as the moon's influence becomes stronger, it has this stimulating effect upon our bodies, and it increases the mode of passion. And I recently heard from one of our god sisters. She's a doctor, and she said it's a well-known, it's like well-known and widely accepted amongst the medical community that it's known, like on the full moon you have a lot more cases of people going off the rails, their mental disturbance, a lot more emergency cases. So it's even, and she said, like, even some of my colleagues, they're atheists, they don't believe in anything, but they see that, they know that when it's the full moon, they have to get prepared. They recognize it has some this word lunatic, right? It's connected with the word luna, moon. So even the common people, they recognize the moon has some influence over people's mentalities and emotional state. So because of that, like increase, that influence, it increases the mode of passion, and increases the enjoying spirit. So the idea is that, so there's these 14 phases, right, in both in the waning and the waxing moon. So the idea is that when you get to the 11th day of that cycle, it's like at the onset of that increasing influence. And so in order to check that influence, like as it's starting, then we simplify what we are taking, so we avoid foods that have they're very strengthening to the body, foods that are very like enhancing the physical aspects. So like high protein foods, grains, which are give a lot of nourishment, and we try to eat more lightly, fruits, vegetables, some nuts, like that. So that's another level of understanding of Ekadasi. But the strictly devotional mood of Ekadasi is that Krishna, his enjoying tendency has increased at this time. Because remember, Krishna Lila, the nature of Krishna Lila is a prakrita. It has human-like, it has a human-like expression. It's whatever is found within the human life, that is also expressed in a divine way in Krishna Lila. So Krishna is also showing himself to be under this tendency, enjoying tendency. Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, but at this time it's understood that his propensity for enjoyment has inconceivably increased even more. So he's more hungry. He's more in need of receiving energy, receiving enjoyment at this time. So the real devotional idea is that at this time, the devotees are trying to supply more to Krishna. He needs more at this time. And in our giving more to Krishna, we are naturally taking less for ourselves. We're giving more energy to Krishna, and in doing that, we have less time for ourselves. We want to give less to ourselves. And one beautiful example of this is in Tulasi Devi, that this is one rule regarding the service of Tulasi, that we never will pick Tulasi on the day after Ekadasi, because it's understood that on the Ekadasi day, when Krishna is in this state of greater need, she's supplying more energy to Krishna, and so the day after, she needs to rest a little bit, so we don't disturb her we never will pick her leaves on the day after Ekadasi. So that's the devotional mood regarding Ekadasi. Another very beautiful point which Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned is that Ekadasi, she's actually a person, she's a devotee. And she has her own style of service, and her style is like in the mood of austerity and self-abnegation. Like that's how she likes to serve. Whereas Dwadashi, what's interesting is that sometimes it's mentioned that the day of Dwadashi is the 12th day in the cycle of the moon. Dwadashi is the day after Ekadashi. And sometimes it's mentioned Dwadashi is even more dear to Krishna, but her mood is different. Her mood is not so much in that style of renunciation and abnegation. She has a different devotional expression. So that's another consideration which Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned. Like we're honoring Ekadasi as a person, and this is how she likes to serve. So that's another consideration. Oh, and then last point, and very important, which I wanted to mention is that Mahaprabhu, because traditionally within the Vedic culture, married ladies, they don't follow Ekadashi, because it's considered that for married women, their primary object of service is their husband. And so because they need to keep themselves fit for the service of their husband, then it is the accepted custom that they don't fast, because if they fast, then they're not able to render full service to their husband and to their families. So the traditional custom is that ladies don't fast. Married women, they don't fast on Ekadashi. It will be like a tradition that widows follow, but not married ladies. But in Chaitanya, is it Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat? I can't remember. I think Chaitanya Charitamrita. But it's described there that one day Mahaprabhu went to his mother, to Shachi Devi, I believe like on his knees, and said, "My dear mother, I have one request of you." And she said, "Yes, my dear boy, what is that?" And he said, "Please follow Ekadashi." That was his request to his mother. Please follow Ekadashi. You know, that exclusive devotional mood, that service to Krishna, the center, the absolute center, that is more important than following some traditional, social custom. So really, like for us, that's enough to know about Ekadashi, that Mahaprabhu specifically asked his mother, and by extension, all followers of Mahaprabhu follow Ekadashi. That's all we really need to know, actually, that it's Mahaprabhu's desire, and we're doing that. And lastly, in regards to Ekadashi, we can mention that there's some, I've observed that there's some stereotyped idea about Ekadashi, that it's a day for doing more quiet service, for reading and chanting and fasting, and I don't know where that came from. Maybe there's some Vedic idea like that. Maybe there's some lines that observe Ekadashi like that. But from the perspective of the exclusive devotional line, that's not the case at all. Rather, it's a day for rendering more service, for giving more service to Krishna, because Krishna is in more need. And that devotional principle is so important that if needed, then we will decrease the level of our fasting in order to facilitate more intense level of seva. So like, for example, originally the shastric rule is that you do a full fast on Ekadashi. And we see that people who will fast without water every Ekadashi, without food, without water. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur pointed out, the real purpose of Ekadashi, if we can appreciate the devotional line, the devotional approach, is to serve Krishna, to please Krishna. We're not following, because many people follow Ekadashi for themselves, because it's mentioned, and these are things to encourage people who otherwise wouldn't follow any spiritual practice. It's mentioned so many benefits that you can gain. This Ekadashi, if you follow this Ekadashi, you can get this, different benefits within the world. So there are people who follow Ekadashi like that, expecting some material result. But Saraswati Thakur pointed out the real purpose of Ekadashi, the fundamental purpose of Ekadashi, is to please Krishna, not us. And therefore, in order to properly serve Krishna, we cannot do a full fast, because if you're doing a full fast, then you're in a weakened condition. So Saraswati Thakur, as the great spiritual revolutionary, he adjusted that rule so that we do a half-day fast. We fast until noon, and then we take more lightly. That was the adjustment that Saraswati Thakur made. If we can appreciate the principle of devotion, of service to Krishna, then rules, they should be adjusted. The rules are meant to support that fundamental Krishna, that fundamental principle. Smartavya satatam Vishnur smartavya jatuchit. Etayor eva kinkara sarva vidi. I don't remember right now, but saying this famous line, saying that to always remember Krishna, to never forget Krishna. All the prohibitions and injunctions given in the scriptures, they are servants of these two principles. So that's the principle of service to Krishna. And in serving that fundamental principle, then we may need to adjust certain rules. So that's the main idea of Ekadashi, and according to our service necessity, then we all may observe in slightly different ways, but the main principle is to try to offer more service, give more energy to the Lord, to Guru, to Vaishnava, and to take less for ourselves. So it's an opportunity, really. It's an opportunity to give more service, and whatever service, as we know, service is valuable according to necessity. So what service we can offer on that day, it is more appreciated, it is of more value. So it is a day of opportunity for us. Okay, I think that covers all the points that I wanted to make. I hope that answers all of your questions. Jai Shri Bhakti Sangha Guru Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.